So how are you doing, Camille?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here, so thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So let's talk about this schedule of yours for a moment. Because when I follow you on Instagram and Twitter, you're closing up these shows and opening these shows and spending a week here and spending a week there. What's it like to be like a traveling on the road all the time, doing these shows? I mean, just in terms of the energy piece of it,
Oh, the energy piece. Well, I think both pieces.
Yeah, the mics don't seem. You just got to bring it.
Oh, thank you.
Let me see if I can turn them off over here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The energy piece is more of, I feel like if it was the laundromat, it's the spin cycle. It's just like wild and crazy. But then emotionally, because we are doing 3 different pieces, we're doing all of the works from the trilogy, it is really challenging. And we talk about, in Tolerance, we talk about taking off the mask and putting it back on, but it's almost like having that in real time, and shifting your perspective, shifting your performance. What are the goals that you're trying to get from each piece? It constantly shifts with every week that we do it.
I mentioned the travel piece and the labor of it, because I think folks think of dance as, folks who aren't dancers think about dance as being fun. It's kind of going to the club on a Saturday night. There are a bunch of gentlemen here to our right who are going to be professional athletes next year. But you are a professional athlete also.
Yes, I'd like to think so. I mean, it is fun because we love doing it, but it is also work, and it is also takes the conditioning of the body, conditioning of the mind. Just like players have coaches. In a sense, my father played. My father played basketball, but he also was a coach part-time. So when he comes to see my shows and he watches me direct, he kind of connects that with coaching. So in a sense, that's what we are. We are a team. It's a company. It's a collective. It's all about community and camaraderie. So there are a lot of things that tie in with athleticism and dance.
This is a class, The History of Hip Hop, and we actually start part of the conversation with the class around things like blackface minstrelsy, right, and stereotypes. We spend a lot of time trying to unpack some of the stereotypes, particularly in the images of hip hop and black culture more broadly. The show that you're presenting during your residency now is a piece called Mr. Tolerance, which goes directly into those kind of issues. Can you talk a little bit about your inspiration for that piece?
Yes, so I had several inspirations. At one time, I would watch Bamboozled, Spike Lee's Bamboozled, every year. It was one of my favorite movies.
How many of y'all have seen Bamboozled? Wow. So y'all need to take Professor Douthit's hip hop cinema class next year, but that's an aside.
Yeah. So it's about what happens if minstrelsy is brought into present day, and the response to the community, the response to the individual that steps into or behind that mask. Also the idea of double consciousness, code switching, putting on a mask, taking it off, asking a question, a personal question when I was getting into theater, and I was asking people, what should I do to break into the business? People would say, oh, show up to this place, talk to this person, and it had really nothing to do with the artistry. And I almost felt like, okay, well, do I have to come in and do like a tap dance, make sure, don't have your earrings on, or, make sure you talk a certain way to people, and, don't come off as being intimidating. It was just a lot of things that had nothing to do with who I was as a person. Also, I was watching, at the time, the rise of reality TV. It was kind of new in the sense around 2011, and I watched a lot of reality TV. And there was one point where I was watching, I think it was Love and Hip Hop, and they were fighting, and it just clicked like, wow, I see the same imagery all the time, and it's the same image of black women, and it felt immediately uncomfortable. And I started really looking at how I was complacent and possibly pushing this show or pushing those type of perceptions. So I wanted to create a piece that looks at both honoring Black entertainers from the past who had to step behind the mask, and also asking the question, is it possible for us to ever walk in an environment where we don't have to think about wearing a mask or code switching or the double consciousness? And it's more of posing a question versus solving a problem, because I think it's something that we're still trying to figure out as a society.
Now, Ninth, when you were with Little Brothers, these are issues that y'all took on directly in some of the titles of your albums. Do you still think that hip hop is in a place now where it's reproducing problematic stereotypes?
Yeah, I think so, because it's because certain artists, the way hip hop is now, people think we can't think, if I make sense, because we're only looked at as a hip hop. We only looked at it as an entertainment piece. That's it. When somebody says you're supposed to get something out of it, everybody, a lot of people in this generation is like, what does that even mean? So, and that's because of what's being fed over and over and over and over to the public. And you know, that's a problem when you hear, you know, at one point, hip hop had lyricism. Now the lyricism might have been, you know, positive or negative. What's positive or negative is all relative where you come from. But lyricism might have been positive or negative, but it was still clever in a sense, right? It still had something to it, whether it was 10 crack commandments or whether it was looking at the front door or whatever it was. That's what it was. But now, if you look at it as lyricism, hip hop, now you look at it as an alien almost. And that's the thing. So I think we definitely, hip hop, some parts of reality TV, all of reality TV is pretty much on the same wavelength. It's all pushing the same kind of narrative over and over and over and over.
Ninth, you have an artist on your label, Jam, Rhapsody, Grammy Award nominated. There's a way in which she disrupts our perceptions of women in hip hop because she doesn't look the part, she doesn't sound the part. There are ways in which Black women have been scripted in how they're supposed to exist in hip hop, and she disrupts that.
Right.
For you, Camille, there's a certain notion of what kind of body type should be involved in dance. And we've had this conversation before, and it always shocks me to hear you say that there were folks who said to you that you didn't have the right body type.
Right.
To be in dance. Could you expound on that a little bit?
Oh yeah, as I was a student, and I had teachers. I mean, I had one group of teachers who really encouraged me, focused on conditioning my body. Another group, you know, they kind of looked at me up and down and said, okay. I mean, you can always tell when you're not the favorite, you're not the person that they're looking at. So I got that from a lot of teachers, and I really got frustrated about it, to the point where in some classes I wouldn't get corrected. So I just took an assignment and I said, well, I'm just gonna start correcting myself. Every note that I get, every note that is given to someone else, I'm just gonna take it. So I just started to try to push against what some of the energy that I was possibly getting in those classes. And it actually, in a sense, brought me to choreography, because when I did my first couple of years of college, I wasn't even called to audition for things because of my body type. I'm not gonna fit the costume or some excuse. So it really brought me to creating and really understanding that choreography is not just about putting things together, but it's actually about you creating your voice and finding liberation inside of it. So I was able to find something, even though I had a lot of rejection as a student, I was able to feel liberated from that rejection.
Let's pause for a moment. You saw Camille when she came in. I think most folks would describe her as a tiny woman. And they were telling her that she was too big to fit in the costumes. Think about that for a second. And in how many other contexts, in this case, Black women are told?
Oh, yeah.
Right, whether it's dance or in the music industry, you know, for lack of a better way to describe it, you know, thick R&B singers have practically disappeared in the landscape of what we think of as R&B music is one example. You know, Jasmine Sullivan literally has disappeared, you know, because she doesn't look the part
Yeah.
of what we think artists should look like. How did that weigh on you to kind of get past that? Because I imagine on some level it's like even traumatic to think about doing this kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's traumatic to walk up and want something so bad and to feel like you just can't keep getting doors shut in your face, and what do you do? But I think at that point we have to realize that even though you're not getting into some doors, you also have the opportunity to create your own door and to create your own path. So in choreography, I was able to find the confidence, and I'm still, I'm still working on confidence, but it was an opportunity for me to say, wait, I don't have to wait for someone, and as some of my friends say, to wand me and to give me an opportunity to open the door. I can just, while I'm figuring that out, I can just be over here trying to do my own thing. And I really revel in the fact that I don't have to wait for anyone. I can create my own voice.
I mean, even some of the dancers that have been in your group over the last few years, I mean, you've created opportunities for a range of Black bodies, bodies in general, to exist in your work.
Yeah, it's really about who can tell the story. And specifically, there's one solo that one of my dancers, Catherine Foster, does, and it is about Black women and empowering Black women, and the fact that she does have a voluptuous body. I want to use that as a source of empowering other Black women who may not necessarily see themselves in spaces like dance, so they can look at Cat and be inspired and feel like, wow, I can do that too. There's nothing for me to be ashamed of outside in the society where I am told to sometimes kind of sunk in or, kind of shame and dim myself. This is an opportunity for me to arrive and to breathe. So.
Patrick, we have known each other for 14 years. And we've been teaching this class now for now. I've never asked you this question, but do you dance?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Like, if you were in the club and you're not sitting.
I don't think, if we're talking about the time I started to go to socials and parties, like your first high school dance or your first middle school dance.
You probably already like 5'11".
You have to think, no, not at all. You have to think in middle school, I was like 5'7", 5'6". So you have to think around that time. Every rapper at that time had a backup dancer. Right? We're talking about Big Daddy Kane with Scoop and Scrap, right? If we're talking about, and that's 1986, 1987, and then Hammer came and changed everything. Now when you perform, oh my God, now when you perform, because you have to look at Heavy D pre-Hammer and then post-Hammer, right? You have to look at New Edition pre-Hammer and then look at Bobby Brown post-Hammer. So Hammer comes in 1988 and just changes everything. It changes the stage show. He has 50 dancers on stage. They're dancing hard the whole time. So now your middle school dance is going from doing the little easy wop or whatever to the Running Man. And the Running Man changed everything. Now you're leaving the high school dance tired, right? So you had to, because in that time, in the age of no cell phones, no Instagram, no Facebook, no anything, it was kill or be killed. Either you got in the middle of the floor and you danced, there was a way of socializing, or you stayed on the wall. So you had no choice but to, especially with the tempo of the songs and the tempo of hip hop at that time, you had techno at that time, you had a house at that time, you had no choice but to dance. It wasn't no just one just jumping up and down motion. You had the dancing parties. So yeah, all of my friends can move like that.
Did you pay attention to the dancers in hip hop videos?
Oh yeah, I tried to learn all the scenes and everything. They start doing their thing and I do it too. So yeah, I loved it.
Did you listen to much hip hop when you were growing up?
Absolutely, yeah, I loved it. I mean, KRS-One.
Who you can't dance to?
You can dance to. But what's interesting is that throughout, as I was growing up, there always have been conversations about who are the best rappers in hip hop, and I never heard any women listed.
So give me your top 5 now.
Oh, I'm
Here we go.
not gonna get my top 5 right. I can tell you next spot. But, no, I don't, I'm gonna stay out of it. But, yeah, so just in connecting to that, I didn't realize that women weren't getting the same type of exposure or looked at the same way until I started choreographing and choreographing as a Black female. I didn't make that connection until I started going into looking at other spaces and going, wow, there's a similar kind of thing that's happening here. So even though I did listen to it, I also feel like there was a sense of encouragement to listen to more of the male hip hop artists rather than the females, which I just really think is interesting now.
I remember a few years ago, Stanley Clark and Gregory Hines did a duet together. Stanley Clark played the electric bass and Gregory Hines was tapping along with it. Is there a rapper or rappers that you would want to collaborate with?
Oh, well, I love, I'm really interested, and this is based on one of the inspirations behind Tolerance, but Lupe Fiasco, when he had that video that was really looking at minstrelsy, I thought that was fantastic and something that I would love to collaborate with. And Nas is from Queens, so I'm always gonna like say, you know, Nas. And I think I want to have a conversation. I actually want to have a more or less of a collaboration, but more of a conversation with like MC Light or Queen Latifah, and to just really listen about their trajectory and how they felt as women in hip hop, and what are the things that I can take as a Black female and as a director and a choreographer, and hopefully be inspired by some of the stories that they may have.
Look, that sounds like a Kennedy Center.
You're right, it is. You know, it's funny because my first introduction to dance was breakdancing, of course. That's what I saw when I was a kid. But the first dancer that I attached myself to was Debbie Allen. And that was because of Fame, the TV show. Fame was like, you know, they showed Fame in network, primetime network television. And that was the first person that I can identify. It was her, then it was Ozone and Turbo from Breaking.
Yeah.
And those were the three that I knew, but Debbie Allen was like the first. So when I started to produce and started to make music, I went in stages. I went from liking the music, enjoying the music, and then it was Pete Rock that made me want to be a part of it. So I guess my question to you is, when did you start to like it? When did you start to actually study it as a study? And then who was the person to make you say, you know what, I want to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah, well, I've always liked it. I didn't really understand to appreciate it until I started working with Rennie Harris.
Okay.
And just really living inside of his movement, his process, and every step had a story.
Tell the young folks who Rennie Harris is.
Oh yeah, Rennie Harris is a legendary hip-hop choreographer. He's based out in Philly, but he does amazing work. It's rooted, I call him, and also Marcel Durden, who is a scholar. I call them like the encyclopedia of hip-hop and jazz dance, because they know an incredible amount. But being a part of that company, and I was only a guest for a season, but it just blew my mind in terms of most times I just took hip-hop classes to move. But he was actually telling us that there are origins to these dances, and it started making me think of hip-hop as a technique, where when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily considered a technique, like ballet, jazz, modern. These were the things that you study to become. And hip hop was something that was, you take that once a month. And being with him, I really appreciated and really realized that, wow, this is closer to who I am as a Black person and my culture than ballet. but for some reason, that's mostly what I've been taught and educated. So it really, I had to, after having that experience working with Rennie, just seriously think about, in terms of my work and diving in, what are the things that I wanted to do that have nothing to do with whether it's going to be accepted in the dance community or not.
And it's always, I imagine, the fear, thinking about where Rennie gets started, of being ghettoized in dance, right? So you just become the dancer who only does the hip hop dance piece. But of course, you know, he has Lazarus now, you know, which is like the face of Alvin Ailey. And so even in his case, he's been mainstream in a way, you know, that says that there are broader possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's wonderful when choreographers can work with other companies, but then also to see his company, Rennie Harris Peer Movement, to see what that looks like on his company, and the richness of hip hop is just really special, and it needs to be highlighted more.
You are considered a master of your craft, so
Well, that's nice.
I mean, it is what it is. But I think I want to see. Sometimes when you talk to masters of their craft, sometimes you want to see if you see the same things they see. So my question is, what are some of your top? You say you looked at a lot of hip hop videos, probably a lot of videos. Period. What are some of your top like dance scenes or choreographed scenes? I know what my favorites are, but sometimes me not understanding the history and not understanding the depthness of dance,
Yeah.
my favorite might not be considered the best by the master of the craft.
Yeah.
So what do you think the best that you've ever seen? I want to see if I'm on the same page, pretty much.
That I've ever seen that I know now to appreciate more
Right.
are Michael Jackson's background dancers, because they were also his teachers.
Okay.
And they were the ones that showed him the moonwalk and all of the things that Michael Jackson is known for.
Michael Jackson did not create the moonwalk.
You know, so yeah, so it's really special for me to now look back at those, not knowing that they are his teachers, but knowing it now and really appreciate it. And those were already my favorite dance scenes anyway, like Amy, Are You Okay? That's not hip hop, but
No, it's Eddie. Yeah, Eddie.
but Eddie, okay, yeah. So
The Smooth Criminal.
Thriller, that was done by like Michael Peters,
Mhm.
who was, I mean, anything that people know those artists for, there's always somebody behind the scenes guiding them. There's a creative team. So now that I am a choreographer and working a lot behind the scenes, now I pay even more attention to how things come together rather than just looking at the artist out in front.
Right.
So even like breaking and all of those dancers that were in support of the main ones, but they were legends themselves.
Right.
And just looking at, I mean, it's masterful. And it's thrilling and it makes me proud, but it also scares me a little bit because a lot of these people were never appreciated really for what
Right.
they contributed to those particular artists. So I feel like a lot of things get lost sometimes when they transfer to mainstream. Then it becomes all about the flash, and sometimes less about the context and what that person or the group of people intended to showcase.
That makes sense. I just thought that we had an argument, like an hour-long argument in the studio one night, and it was between the dance sequence and Thriller versus the dance sequence and Remember the Time. And see what I'm saying? This is what I'm trying to figure
Now,
out.
what was the argument?
Which one was better?
I
But
feel
we're
like
saying
you can't
better.
compare.
Yeah, we're saying better because we're favorites, but I want to know, yeah, like which one was. Yeah, I don't think there's any. I won't say as far as technique is concerned, but I don't think there's any more memorable dance sequence than Thriller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's hard to compare because it's two different choreographers.
Right.
It's two different, we're talking about the 80s and then the 90s.
Right.
So it's
A
a
black
completely
female
different.
choreographer
A black
at
female
the time.
choreographer, you know, so, and even the aesthetics that they're pulling from, because that was more of like an Egyptian scene, and they were, yeah, so I think it's just really hard. I agree. There's nothing like Thriller. If I was a dancer in Thriller, my resume would just say Thriller. That's it. That's all I need.
That's all. Okay.
That's all I would need.
Got it. That makes sense.
Ninth has been teaching with me for 9 years. He's also taught at Harvard, he's been teaching North Carolina Central longer. You can choreograph for the rest of your life. You might not be out there dancing
That's right.
for the rest of your life.
That's
Are you
right.
thinking about teaching?
No. No, I mean, okay, so I used to teach a lot, and I used to choreograph for other companies, but there came a point where I realized that teaching wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to read a book or take a class. I wanted to be the student, and I still feel like that. And sometimes I feel like, well, why am I teaching? I need to be learning something else. I could be doing, you know, I could be like building my own intellect. But I do understand the idea of sharing that intellect too. But I teach every once in a while, and when I do teach, I like doing it, but I don't like doing it all the time.
What was it like working on Jesus Christ Superstar? You know, because it's a big television production. I mean,
Yes.
it's a little different than, you know, the Broadway piece or your own shows. But what was it like working on television like that?
It was one of the best experiences of my career. I've never done television before, so I had to learn a lot very quickly. And to be honest, even though it was seen in front of millions and it was a television show, we actually didn't, that wasn't the energy that was created by the director, David LeBeau. It was really about building a theatrical show. So I didn't really think about it being in front of millions of people until literally 5 minutes before it was gonna go live. It's like, oh yeah, this is about to be shown by a lot of people. But I focus on the work. I try to remove kind of all the extra stuff that might take me off and just focus on the root. What is the story? How can I contribute to this the best way I can? How can I empower the people that are around me? How can I support the director? And I felt like the space was, even though we had to work very fast and furiously, I felt like the space was extremely supportive, especially to me because I was the only one. I was the only woman on the creative team, and I didn't realize that until we all met together in one room, and I was like, oh, okay. So there's one, but just in terms of everyone's stats, I mean, I'm coming in and I don't have, this is my first time doing television, and everyone on the team, I mean, this is like their fifth one, but they didn't treat me like that, and a lot of times when you are in spaces where you're new, it's easy for, sometimes people want to remind you that you are new, and always make it so you never forget. But I have to say that I never felt that the entire time, and I felt supported and I felt respected, and I think that's really important.
We have any questions?
So Ninth talked about how people limit hip-hop to only entertainment. And I was wondering if you guys thought that that's similar to people telling athletes like LeBron to just shut their mouth.
So the question was, Nike mentioned that we often think about rappers as just educators, not thinkers. Does that apply in the same context of telling athletes to basically shut up and play? If they actually have political views and other things?
100%. You know, I mean, that's so layered because I remember being in this class a couple of years ago and me being stopped by police, right, in South Carolina. And the policeman that stopped me, I had Harvard placed on the back of my car. So he questioned if the car was mine, right? And to even go through that, so even when it got out of the press and it was on sources with Douthit, it was everywhere. Like some of the comments were, "Why are you complaining? You're rich, right? Why are you saying anything? You have a great life." Like it's like just because we make a certain amount of money, whether an athlete, whether an entertainer, whether whatever, it's like, I live by the creed of Curtis Mayfield, we must educate as well as entertain. So the whole thing of LeBron not having something to say because just shut up and play basketball, or rappers who may want to be activists at the same time, you know, some people look at you in this, like, put you in this box of, if you have this certain talent, that's all you're supposed to be able to do, period. But there was never a question of like Bill Bradley, who played for the Knicks and then ran for public office, right? It's not the same on the other side of the fence, but with us, it's you're supposed to do this and that's it. Like shut up and make beats, or shut up and play ball. It's the same concept.
Other questions?
Is there traditional stereotypes that you might, is there stereotypes you didn't expect going into the field professionally? I mean, I think you probably had a strong awareness that you were Black and female and going into this space, but was there anything unexpected that you have come across in your career and identified with?
The stereotypes that I came
Yeah, or
across
other
with?
challenges in general, but instead of being in the space as a professional.
I had one time where someone told me that I was angry and basically listed all of the stuff that you're not supposed to say or should not say to a Black female. And that was a very challenging conversation. So, but in terms of the stereotypes, like the angry Black female, those I knew going in. And sometimes if you don't smile, then people think, what's wrong? Yeah, it's that idea of the mask, and we were just talking about this in rehearsal, where there's a certain privilege that people have, where people can get up, curse, walk out, come back in, they still have a job. I do that, I'm not coming back. So these are just things that are kind of playing in my head, and there are many spaces where I am the only Black person, or I am the only Black woman, or I'm the only woman. And there have been instances when I first were in those spaces that I would dim myself. I would get really insecure, and I tried to find, okay, well, how am I going to be myself? And I immediately thought about the Black women specifically that have come before me, that have created the space for me to be there. And then also thinking about the other Black women that are in other spaces where they're alone. And then also thinking about the Black girls and the Black young women that are coming behind me. And once I think about it, that it's less about me dimming myself and more about me showcasing who Black girls are and what we do and honoring that, then I have no choice, because at that point it's an obligation and it's a responsibility.
Quick question. Any of you in the audience ever been called an angry Black woman? Y'all care to share at all? Yeah, how did it make you feel? How did you negotiate it? Was it a one-time occurrence, or is it like regularly how you're framed?
Like, especially, I mean, it's not like it's unique to, like, when you're interacting with, like, white people or anything. Like, it's just a very universal stereotype, and it makes it really, like, how deliberately you have to go about framing, because sometimes you are actually angry, but you have to frame your anger in a way that's not offensive or aggressive, because, like, it's like, when you're saying, like, you're talking to,
so much, you're exhausted by it. It's like after trying to negotiate, everything is happening in real time, and you're trying to negotiate, like you said, how am I going to respond in a way that this person is actually listening to me? And that's a lot of energy to use in a very short amount of time, repeatedly. So yeah.
How many people in here, when they leave, do want to go in business for themselves? 1, 2, 3, 4. The reason why I ask is, you know, we teach class year after year after year after year, and not surprisingly, we've learned that even if you get your degree and you sit down at your desk the first week and say, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. That happens more times than not. I think that what ties us together as artists is we're in business for ourselves. And sometimes, you know, they hear me talk and they hear you talking and thinking, oh, she's a dancer, or oh, he's a producer, or whatever, but it's really about self-entrepreneurship. So if you are in this class and you want to go to in business for yourself, I suggest you ask the question.
Well, race also plays a part too, and
Right.
I think gender especially
Of
when
course.
when we're on the road.
Right.
Because my production stage manager is a white man, and we went to Ireland once, and we were sitting at a place, and 2 guys came, and they were cool, but they asked, so who's your boss? And they immediately turned to Robert, and everybody was like, no, it's actually, you know, Camille, and they were so shocked. And then another time, we were in DC, and we were in a restaurant, and the bartender, who was a black man, was talking to us, and I was telling him, well, the dancers were telling him that I was the director, and he looked at me and he was like, wow, you have a small voice, you know, you have a small stature, I can't see you being a leader. And I said, well, in 2 days we'll be performing at the Kennedy Center, so come and see leadership from a female, black female perspective.
Questions? Yes.
Relating to what you were saying, my mom's Mexican and she owns a business, and whenever she's like trying to like give direction to some of people that work for her, they get like some of the men get offended by it, which I think is like really interesting because like yeah, she's like this very like 5 foot tall woman, but she's still your boss. Like I don't know. It's like,
I'm curious if you've surrounded yourself with mentors that are like you, or if you've been empowered by being in the presence of mentors that are different from you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of mentors, but I will say there's nothing like being empowered by a black female. When I was in theater or wanted to pursue theater, I didn't know if it was going to be a reality because I didn't necessarily see black female choreographers working in theater, and I had to do the digging. And I found Marlise Yerby and Diane McIntyre and learned about Catherine Dunham working with George Balanchine on Cabin in the Sky, and immediately that empowered me. And I had heard from other people, men, black men, white women, white men, encouraging me. But that one moment when Marlise and Diane, 2 people that I see a reflection of myself inside of, there's just nothing like that.
How about you?
Yeah, I think so. I was in a college preparatory program at Wake Forest from 1989 to 1993 called Project Ensure, and it was for minority academically gifted 8th graders, right? And so the director of the program had this saying, and he said, you gotta see one to be one. I think what people don't understand, for the most part in the Black community, when you see a person like myself, Dr. Mark Anthony Neal, you know, making the money that we make, going to places that we go to, things like that, majority of the time we're the first in our family's history to do so, right? Not only that, not only first in our generation, like we're the only one that runs the whole side of the family tree that does that, right? And so that's what it was for me. When I went to Wake Forest, I started to see people that, you know, men that looked like me, that was my color, that was super smart, and, you know, going on to med school and law school. And I hadn't seen that before, because my dad didn't finish 10th grade, right? So, you know, by the time I got to high school, those became my role models way more so than anybody else. I started to look for that model. And then when I got into the music industry, you know, the first person I saw that I wanted to be a producer was Pete Rock. So anybody that sounded like Pete Rock, or anybody that made music like him, that led me to DJ Premier, that led me to so many other people. That's who I wanted to be like. So it started when I was like 14, 13 years old, from being in 8th grade and seeing all these college students that I thought were cool, that I thought they had a thing together, right? And from watching Different World and seeing somebody by the name, you know, Kadeem Hardison, who played a character by the name of Dwayne Wayne. And I hadn't seen that before. He was valedictorian of his class on the show, but he also wore Air Jordans, and I thought, wow, you know what I mean? I can do both. I can be smart, and I can also do that. So I surrounded myself with that.
This question is for Camille. In the entertainment industry, I'm sure there's like a lot of great dancers, but when you were first starting your company, who were you looking for as far as not just can they dance, but also like the people that they were? What were the values that were important to you when starting your company? And as a leader, like, how did you inspire them to, like, because I'm sure you had a mission in mind, right? Like, not just to create dance, but you had a mission, like, I want to tell stories about this. So how did you bring them on board and be like, look, like, this is our mission and how we're going to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Can you say the first one more time, just so I can tackle that?
Like, what values were important to you when starting your company, like, leadership-wise?
Yeah, the main value was people who were willing to be in the thick of it when I'm stuck or afraid, doubtful, because there's a joy in creating movement, but there's also a fear, especially when you are in an underrepresented group. So it was important for me to surround myself, and all of the people that I worked with in the very beginning were my friends. So it was important to surround myself with those people that believed in me, would help empower me, and in return, I would be able to empower them. And I think one of the ways that I invite my dancers, and I don't want to speak for them, they're right over there, but one of the ways that I try to invite them into the stories is encourage them to also be leaders. So it's just not about me telling them what to do, but they actually have a voice in the space. So if we're talking about stereotypes, you know, we'll have a conversation about that, and I'll listen to everyone who wants to contribute. And that's how we are a community versus me becoming a dictator and telling them, well, this is how you have to act, and this is, but I also gained that with a lot of experience, because as I honed my craft as a choreographer, I was able to understand, okay, I really need someone who is character-based, and I need someone who has a sense of humor, because I like telling jokes every 2 seconds. But I also have to have people that when a piece isn't successful, that we get a bad review, that they still come the next day, and they're just as empowered and encouraged to keep going than they were before without that review.
We'll take a couple of more.
Yeah, what can you talk about your
this is Pamela Green, this is my agent. So that's why I say, you're not right. Black female agent, by the way, which is really important to me. So what was your question, Pam? Sorry, you.
You do incredible work, and we certainly know that you are leader artistically, but you have a team behind you, right?
Yes.
And I think it's important for the students to understand that, in addition to artistic, possibilities, there's also things that happen. There's entities to Indira, you have a director, you have a social media director, all of those sort of parts that go to help carry your vision forward. And I'd love to hear that from Donnie as well. Who do you work with? Who's on your team?
Yeah, I mean, we never do anything alone, and I think that's what I was trying to express when we were talking about the videos and the artists. There's always there are always people who are in support of you, helping to pave the way for you. So it's really important for me to always acknowledge my team, but I think it's always important to just stay on the path too. And to be brave, and I think some of my persona, I guess, is known for being like fearless, but I personally feel like I'm the most fearful person I know, and one of the reasons why I do get out and continue to do my work is because of the community that surrounds me. So when I mention the community, and I'm talking about leadership, I'm not just talking about the dancers, I'm also talking about everybody in the room that makes that work.
Do you have a social media team, or do you do most of your social media?
No, I'm on that myself. But as far as for me and my brand is branched out in 3 ways. It's all based on culture and music, but at the same time, it's my music piece, my regular, my educational piece, and now my basketball piece. So for my music piece, the same program that I was talking to her about, Project Ensure, there's a young lady that was in that program with me that graduated from high school with me. She's one of my best friends. She's my product manager for my label, right? Tia Wallington, and Kashif Norville, who was one of my producers, he's now the president of my label. So that's my music side, right? My educational side kind of branches out because this is a teammate of mine right here, right? At Duke. There's several people at Ancestral that's on my educational side. And there's people at Harvard, Marcy Morgan at Harvard on my educational side, Timothy Ann Burnside at the Smithsonian, which I'm involved with, Simone Exline, which we are involved with, the Kennedy Center. That's at the Kennedy Center. So all of that's my academic side of things. My basketball side is Eric Lombach at Nike, Carlton DuBose, who runs EYBL program at Nike. So that's all of my basketball stuff that I do. So you're absolutely right. We can't do this if we don't have I don't even like to call it like a supporting cast. It is definitely a team, It's definitely a team situation, right? I try to always tell my team that it's not about pushing me as a person, but if Ninth Wonder is a brand, it's about pushing that. And that's how we kind of look at things, to take me out of it, right? To make it, take me, we want to push you to the front. No, that's not what it's about. So that is kind of like the team that I built across 3 different, fields or whatnot.
I think also it's important to know that I didn't start out with a team. I was the social media manager. I was the agent. I was booking I was writing the grants. And I think a lot of times people see your success and they think, oh, you have a team, you have all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but I actually worked. I was carrying so much stuff, and then when it got to a point financially that I was able to let it go, then I actually did. But the exhaustion and the persistence that it took to actually build a team is something that is really important. So even though, in a sense, like we're all saying that we don't do it alone, there is a part of us that has to take on a lot of hats in the very beginning in order to get to a point where you then can create a community. Because my community were my friends in the room. and I had to build that, and it took a lot of time.
You talk about going into business for selling. We're all told that can be like discouraged or discouraging sometimes. What's the tips that get through that we get like discouraged and trying to go into business for yourself?
Tips of not getting discouraged?
Like just for getting through that discouragement and to keep going. Because a lot of people quit when they said,
Yeah. You know, I don't know your religious affiliation, but, okay. Well, whatever you choose to call your maker, and whatever gender your maker is, pray. That's the only thing I can tell you to do, because, you know, it's just a couple of things. It's prayer, and it's also, you know, it's all this talk about the law of attraction. That is a real thing. Law of attraction is if you think about something all the time, if you see it, you can envision it, like it's a universal force that pulls towards you. I can't even explain the depths of that. And also, make sure you run your own race. I think people get in a situation where, especially now, you spend all day looking at Instagram, looking at everybody else's lane. And you can't do that. You can't. Your story is not like anybody else's. I haven't met anybody in the music industry that quote unquote made it with the same story. Nobody has the same story. Everybody's story is different, right? We might all end up in the same place, but our paths getting there is not the same thing. So you can't judge anybody else's path, the time on that path. You can't judge any of that to yours, right? So you have to just focus on those things, and that'll get you through any discouragement.
And part of it is also trusting your vision. You know, when you're thinking about stuff early on, it's clear that folks may not know what the hell you're talking about. And you might not even have the language yet to describe what it is. So Catherine Hanks is the young woman who's behind the camera now. She's the producer and director of Left to Black. She's been shooting the show and editing the show for 9 years now. This is Camille's third appearance on the show. Catherine and I never had a conversation about what the hell this is going to be. But we had a certain kind of like-mindedness about how we wanted to look, what we wanted to achieve. And so sometimes you just attract folks, you know, in your professional relationships who share your vision, even if you don't have a conversation about what that vision actually is.
I would say, I mean, a lot of times when I would just have my ideas, specifically about getting into theater, and I would hear some discouraging words, I just wouldn't talk to them anymore. You know, I would separate myself from those people that were kind of
gotta cut people off.
You know, you gotta cut them off. And you know, to me, I tell my friends, in terms of my convictions, this is a train, and it is moving, and you either get on it or you get off. But regardless, I'm going to keep doing what I want to do, you know. So I think you just have to keep focused and surround yourself with people that are going to challenge you in a healthy way, but are not going to discourage you.
Take one more. Well, I'll take two more. Go ahead.
Like a lot of people look at you guys as successful, but do you feel like you personally reached success? And if not, what is your version of success?
There is no finish line. There is no finish line. I'm pretty sure I can speak for Camille. Like, as soon as she did Jesus Christ Superstar, she probably thought to herself, so what else? If I did this,
What's next?
then what's next? Like, so there is no finish line. If you love if you're passionate about what you do, like, you might get accolades, you may get awards, but for you, it's all about being better and better and better competitor. So that's what it is for me. I'm happy about what I've achieved, but at the same time, I got a lot more work to do. It's this stuff, like she said, ideas that I'm thinking about this maybe 5 years down the road. And once I get to that and accomplish that, then it's going to be some more. So that's why I am.
I think it's really about asking ourselves what is the definition of success. Because to me, it is doing work that I feel good about, that moves me, that hopefully sparks conversation and ideas, and I don't want to ever take that away. And there was a moment, maybe about 5 years ago, I had all of the awards that I had gotten at that point, I had them on my wall, and one day I just decided to take them all down. And I asked myself, if you never get another award, are you still going to be okay? Are you still going to have the same conviction? Do you really need that validation to keep going? So I try to focus on what success is, that is fulfilling the spirit versus what people think. And also, I'm still and proud of being a Black woman, but I'm Black and I'm a woman. People say, you've arrived, and racism and sexism is still very much alive, and it is definitely alive in the dance world. So to think that I have arrived on any level, I think is very dangerous for me to do, and I just want to be in a space where I'm always challenged and empowered, and I don't feel safe. I think there's a danger, and I even though the danger is frightening, I'm also excited about the danger because I know that I'm going to be a better artist whenever I come out of that experience that I just wasn't.
When I defended my dissertation in 1996, one of my mentors, and I'm dating myself here, gave me a bottle of Moet. And I said I would open that bottle when I finally got my first tenure track job. And then it was, I opened the bottle when I published my first book. I'm on book 6, by the way. And then it was, no, I'll open this bottle when I finally get tenure. And then it was, I'll open this bottle when I get promoted to full professor. That was 12 years ago. And then it was, I'll open this bottle when I get a distinguished professorship. That was last year. The bottle still ain't been opened. Right, because there's no end game. It's a process, right? It is a process, right? And if you think about it as a process, you're never thinking about the end of the process, right? One and then two, and that'll be it.
I think one thing that seems really cool about all of you on the stage is that you all navigate these two very different worlds. You live in this world of academia, and you have this really prevalent tech fellowship, and have been around these really cool spaces, but also still live in the entertainment world. How do you navigate those spaces? Did you end up in both of them?
What was the last part of it?
I
Sorry.
guess how did you end up there? What is that been like to live in those very different worlds? How are you making your own?
Academia and entertainment. Wow. The one thing I can say that is the same with academia and entertainment is that the powers that be are both passive aggressive. And they all know each other, which is crazy. But I don't know, the rules, I think the rules apply all the way across, because if I walk into a studio and I don't know my history of music when I'm dealing with like a Jay-Z or somebody like that, Jay will call you out about it. If I walk into a classroom and I don't know what I'm teaching, you have to understand the expertise of both, on both sides. And if you understand that you must know expertise, then no matter what field you walk into, it's going to be the same result. right? It's gonna be the same thing. In academia, if I don't, not necessarily look the part, but if I don't operate like the part, then I will be exposed. In music, if I don't produce or, make beats well or produce an artist in the studio, I'm gonna be exposed. So it's not that much of a difference for me. It's all about being a master of the craft on each side, the way I look at it.
Yeah, completely. I definitely agree, and I'm constantly coaching myself, and it depends on the different space. Like when I realized I was the only woman on the team for Jesus Christ, I had to coach myself. If I'm the only Black woman in the space, I have to kind of empower myself. So I'm doing a lot of work aside from the work that I'm already asked to do. There's that mental navigation, like you said, that can be hard. Sometimes it's more challenging than others. In instances where you're told you're angry, that is a very challenging position to be in, and I haven't mastered how to navigate it, but I think with every experience I get more wiser and more confident.
Because at some point you learn with the anger and the rage and all that stuff that it'll kill you. And you learn how to, manage based on that premise alone.
How do y'all view dance, like in the past now, like how much it now
I love it. I think it's a progression of social dance, and it's continuing the legacy of Black dance, Black social dance, and how we take certain things and we make it our own. So a lot of the dances that we see now, if we go back, you'll see things that are very similar from the 1930s. So I think it's great, but I also would love to see more education around these social dances that we're all doing, because there is a lot to learn past. Oh, this is a really cool step. A lot of steps, specifically historic steps, were used as a form of resistance when they were oppressed, or as a form of celebration. And I think it's important for us to find the joy in what we do now, but also understand how we got to that point.
Let me ask you this question. I don't get the sense that young people slow drag anymore. What does that mean culturally for us at this stage?
That means, oh gosh.
Yeah, do they know what's...
Y'all even know what I'm talking about? Y'all even know what a slow drag is? Do y'all even listen to music that you would slow drag to? Yeah, so it's a slow dance, but do y'all do slow dances? When some of us were growing up, slow dances were coping rituals. Like,
That means you
that's
made
how,
it. That means you made it. That means you made it.
I mean, that's how you got to know somebody. Like, you got up and you danced and you knew how they smelled and you knew the contours. Like, that's all the stuff that went down before you got down.
That means you made it. And that was like a step. Like if you, like the dances I was talking about, or going to a middle school dance, high school dance.
You start out with
It's one thing to be at the dance and like dance with a girl, when the slow song comes on after the fast song, if she walks away, you fail. Because it's this weird, awkward moment when it's, you dance hard and fast, and then always, Tender Love by the Voice of These or something. So this song comes on, and then it's like, okay, do I stand here? She gonna walk away? Well, I'm gonna just grab, what are we gonna do? And so if y'all start dancing and then another slow song comes on and y'all dance to that, it's a rap. It's a rap. That means you won.
Want to thank Camille Brown for joining us this evening. March the 1st and March the 2nd, you can catch the show. Do performance prices, which I believe are like $10. Are you also doing some like conversations and stuff like that?
We have a conversation tomorrow, and we have some classes that are happening too.
Where's the conversation tomorrow?
Tomorrow at noon in Hook downtown, talking with Nicole Oxendine, who runs some power dance studio downtown. There's free pizza.
So I'll shoot you all an email tonight, and that could be extra credit for that.
And I think it's hard too sometimes, because when people hear dance performance, it's like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. But
No, it's amazing.
but I think what speaks to what you said in the very beginning about the intellectual aspect of hip hop and music, it's also there's also an intellectual aspect of dance as well. So hopefully there are things that I know you have discussions about minstrelsy, but what are the ways that we can see minstrelsy in the body? So when we're talking about stereotypes, if I were to get up and embody a thug, that has to do with all of my body. Yes, it does have to do with what may come out of my mouth or what you associate with that, but the video vixen, the mammy, all of these things, how we describe them is always through movement. So it's always exciting to me to actually see people who are not necessarily dancers or even dance lovers, but are interested in the topic.
Thank you. Y'all take a 5-minute break and come back.
Thank you.